Could you explain the background of your study? Certainly. The background of my study explains the context of the research. It describes the current situation, identifies the existing problem, presents supporting evidence from previous studies or observations, and explains why the research is necessary. It also leads readers to understand the purpose of the study. Why did you choose this topic? I chose this topic because I observed a real problem that needs a solution. The issue is relevant to my field of study, and I believe my research can contribute valuable knowledge and practical recommendations. What inspired you to conduct this research? My inspiration came from classroom observations, previous research findings, and real challenges faced by students and teachers. These experiences encouraged me to investigate the problem more deeply. Why is this problem important to investigate? This problem is important because it affects the quality of learning and may influence students' academic achievement. Solving this issue can improve educational practices and benefit both teachers and learners. What is the main problem discussed in your background? The main problem is the gap between the expected learning outcomes and the actual conditions found in the field. This gap became the basis for conducting the research. How did you identify this problem? I identified the problem through classroom observations, discussions with teachers and students, reviewing previous studies, and examining relevant educational reports. What evidence supports the existence of this problem? The evidence includes classroom observations, preliminary data, previous research findings, educational statistics, and reports that indicate the problem still exists. Why does this problem still exist? The problem may continue because of ineffective teaching strategies, limited learning resources, insufficient student motivation, or other contextual factors that have not been fully addressed. Who is affected by this problem? The problem mainly affects students, teachers, schools, and sometimes educational policymakers because it influences the effectiveness of teaching and learning. Why should this problem be solved? It should be solved because addressing the problem can improve learning outcomes, increase educational quality, and provide better opportunities for students to achieve their academic goals. What gap did you identify in previous studies? Previous studies have investigated similar topics, but they were conducted in different settings, involved different participants, or used different methods. Therefore, there is still a need to examine this issue in my research context. What is meant by the research gap? The research gap refers to an area that previous studies have not fully explored or explained. It is the reason why a new study is needed. How does your study fill this research gap? My study investigates the problem in a different educational setting and provides additional evidence that may strengthen or extend previous findings. How is your study different from previous research? My study differs in terms of the participants, location, research design, variables, or educational context. These differences make my research unique and valuable. Why is your research relevant today? My research is relevant because the problem continues to exist, and improving educational quality remains an important goal. The findings may provide practical solutions for current educational challenges. Did you conduct any preliminary observation? Yes. Before conducting the research, I carried out preliminary observations to understand the actual situation and confirm that the problem truly existed. How did the preliminary observation influence your study? The preliminary observation helped me identify the research problem, formulate the research questions, and determine the objectives of the study. What would happen if this problem is ignored? If the problem is ignored, students may continue experiencing learning difficulties, teachers may struggle to achieve instructional goals, and educational quality may not improve. How did you narrow the focus of your background? I narrowed the focus by concentrating on one specific problem, identifying the target participants, and limiting the variables to make the research more manageable and focused. Why didn't you discuss other related problems? Although other problems exist, they are beyond the scope of this research. I focused only on the problem that directly relates to my research objectives. How does your background lead to your research questions? The background identifies the problem, explains its importance, and highlights the research gap. These elements naturally lead to the formulation of the research questions. How does your background lead to your research questions? The background identifies the problem, explains its importance, and highlights the research gap. These elements naturally lead to the formulation of the research questions. How does your background support your research objectives? The background explains why the study is necessary, while the objectives specify what the research intends to accomplish. Both sections are closely connected. Did you use previous studies in writing your background? Yes. I reviewed relevant previous studies to understand what has already been investigated, identify research gaps, and strengthen the rationale for my study. How many references did you use in your background? The number of references depends on the requirements of my institution. I selected credible and relevant sources that directly support the discussion of my research problem. Why is it important to use recent references? Recent references reflect the latest developments, theories, and findings. They ensure that the research is based on current knowledge and practices. Can your background convince readers that your study is necessary? Yes. My background clearly explains the existing problem, presents supporting evidence, identifies the research gap, and demonstrates the significance of conducting the study. If you could improve your background, what would you do? I would strengthen it by including more recent studies, additional supporting evidence, and a deeper discussion of the research gap to make the rationale even more convincing. How does your background contribute to the overall quality of your research? The background serves as the foundation of the study. It justifies the research, guides the formulation of the research questions and objectives, and helps readers understand the importance of the investigation. Why should the panel approve your research based on your background? Because the background presents a real and significant problem, supports it with credible evidence, identifies a clear research gap, and demonstrates that the study has both academic and practical value. Do you have any final remarks about your background of the study? Thank you for your valuable questions and suggestions. I believe the background of my study clearly explains the research problem, establishes the need for the investigation, and provides a strong foundation for the entire research. I appreciate your constructive feedback and will continue improving my work.